All right, good morning, everyone. We, the Elections Committee, would like to thank the candidates and the audience for coming out and joining us here for the Q&A session. Before we get started, there's a few things we would like to cover real quick. The Q&A session is going to be about 2 hours long, give or take. A 15-minute break will occur around the 1 hour mark or around when we hit question number 10, and the session will end at around 3 p.m. Since this is an open meeting platform on Google Meets, we ask that all the viewers keep themselves muted during the duration of the session. Those that have their mic on or are creating a disturbance that interferes with the meeting will be muted by the presenters, and repeated issues will have the individual removed from the meeting. To go over some quick rules real quick here, the candidates will be answering 15 to 20 questions today in a 2-minute block per question. Candidates will not be allowed to go over their time limit by more than 10 seconds. Note that if a candidate repeatedly interrupts another candidate in their timed response, the offender could be penalized with a shortened response time for subsequent questions. Continued interruptions could escalate to more severe penalties up to and including removal from the room or meeting during fellow candidates' responses. The community may participate in today's session through questions submitted during the first half of the session. Questions may be adapted depending on other questions submitted. No negative questions, as decided by the committee, will be used. Not all questions submitted will be used. Interruptions from the audience will not be tolerated. If any interruptions or distractions continue, we will stop the event and ask the offending party to leave. As I mentioned earlier, this video is being recorded digitally to be uploaded to our YouTube account, MNFurs YouTube. The event will be posted within a day or so of this to allow for some trimming. After our event today, the voting will start on March 7th of 2021. That is tomorrow. Ballots, and we will have different formats of voting available for our community. The first format would be absentee voting or paper ballots. The ballots can be requested starting Sunday, March 7th, by sending an email to elections@mnfurs.org. Ballots will be sent out after confirming eligibility. To make your vote count, these ballots need to be received by March 21st by 7 p.m. It can be either postmarked and mailed to the address on the ballot or emailed to elections@mnfurs.org. The other format of voting would be live voting. This would be done online. Typically in the past, we would do our voting at events like the Oval. Since that is not possible, we are doing it online. To request an online voting code for voting, please send an email to elections@mnfurs.org for volunteer hour verification. Once we confirm your hours with our ledger, you'll be sent a voting code that can be used at vote.mnfurs.org. That website is not live right now, so it won't bring you anywhere. But tomorrow at around 12 noon, it should be live. Um, uh, Election results after voting closes at 11:59 p.m. Central on the 27th. All votes will be tallied, and final totals will be announced on March 28th. We're also looking for feedback on how we handle elections, especially this year with doing it online. Hopefully next year we'll be able to do it again in person. But if anyone has feedback, we are more than welcome to take that via the same email that I've said multiple times throughout this meeting already. I guess with that being said, we're going to go ahead and begin. I guess as just a quick reiteration here, we have 2 open seats on the board of directors for MNFurs, and we currently have 3 candidates running. These candidates are, I am not going to botch names, so let me go to the forums real quick. We have Patrick, Yancha, Cain, Michael, Midnight, Zupec, and Cameron, Papillon, Cegelske. I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm really sorry. In attendance today is just Yancha and Midnight. We will find a way to have Papillon answer their questions as part of the debate, which will probably delay this video being released a little bit. Is there anything else? Is there any questions from any of the candidates or any other members of the committee team before we begin?
I'm fine.
Cool. Great. I'm just going to do a quick mic check. Yancha, can you, your mic working?
Sure. Is this working?
Yep. And Midnight, is your mic functional?
Should be.
All right, cool, great. I guess we'll go ahead and begin. Grab the order. All right. For the voting order, I'm sorry, for the question order, I am going to mention Papillon, even though they're not here. We're just going to skip them, and if we do something in post, their question will be added in sequence. So for the first question, this order is going to be Papillon, Midnight, and then Yancha. And for this first question, with other organizations such as GPS, MFF, Animate Twin Cities, and more, how should MNFurs achieve our mission statement and still collaborate with our partners? In this order, we're going to go ahead and start with Midnight.
So with free migration is part of a free convention leadership roundtable, and they have been for a few years. At this roundtable, leaders from all sorts of conventions come together and share ideas with each other. For on the local level with ATC and Twin Cities and any other of local events, we share a lot of resources between everyone, whether that be physical assets or even volunteers, staff, pretty much everything. We want to help each other succeed in any possible way that we can. One thing that I have learned that was talked about years ago, but apparently never just stood dormant, was for my position in free migration is with the head hotel liaison. So there was talks about a local sort of like roundtable with uh, the main venue that a lot of these other conventions share, the Hyatt Regency Minneapolis, and how we can better collaborate between the conventions as well as with the Hyatt in how we can best serve our communities and each other. And it's something that I would like to revisit in the future.
Great. Go ahead and we'll move on, reset the timer. And for Yansha, I'm going to go ahead and repeat the question for you as well. With other organizations such as GPS, MFF, Animate Twin Cities, and more, how should MNFurs achieve our mission statement and still collaborate with our partners?
I think it's important that we keep sharing like our communication and our knowledge and our passion with these groups and organizations. I think it's important that we keep reaching out to them through the leadership roundtable that for like convention side, but also on like the society side for the parent organizations. Keep keep working with them through GPS to share our knowledge and especially like our resources. Um, and also as staff members, I think it's important for us to volunteer for these other organizations. One, we help them out, we fulfill our duties that way, but also too, it teaches us new methods and new ways to run these events. And I think it's important for all of us to gain this skill so we can take it back to our group and implement the best ideas and things that they do in these other events.
Great. Cool. I'll go ahead and present again for the next question. That'd be fun. Flipping back and forth like this.
Mhm.
All right. For the next question, as we are coming out of COVID-19, how do you see MNFurs establish in-person events? For this question, we are going to do Midnight, Papillon, and then Yancha. So Midnight, if you want to go ahead and begin.
As of right now, we are still dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, but we do hope to return to in person events, whether that be through any sort of means necessary. Uh, as we are coming out, I do, or we are going to plan for more to promote more like social distancing, mask wearing, make sure everybody is safe and well at these sorts of events. So while it may take some time to where we will be able to come back to larger events at a more rapid scale, it's something that we can at least like come back into gradually and as things continue to improve with vaccine rollouts and lowering the amount of new cases, then we can hopefully get back to something that we've been used to from the past several years.
Great. We're going to go ahead and move on to Yancha with the same question. As we are coming out of COVID-19, how do you see MNFurs establish in-person events?
So I think what we're going to be moving from is, one, we're going to pay strict attention to all CDC, all government, all local regulations on that matter. We'll slowly roll out more events, probably smaller events so we can keep social distancing up and take all the precautions we can. And then as things open up more, and as the you know basically the regulations and everything loosen, then we'll start rolling out those events. It's just all a matter really when it's going to be safe, and there's no way to tell at this point. We're just going to have to keep listening and just play it by ear until it's safe enough that we can hold events.
Great. Okay, great. For this next question, the order will be Midnight, Yancha, Papillon. What is your understanding of your fiduciary responsibilities if elected to the board? And for this, we are going to start with Midnight.
Oh boy. So, first of all, I have no idea what fiduciary means, but for oh god, I am so sorry.
Do you want me to give you the definition of fiduciary?
Yes,
A fiduciary, for the candidates and everyone else here, involving trust, especially with regard to the relationship between a trustee and a beneficiary. I don't know if that helps you at all. I don't know, Sin, do you have a better way of explaining fiduciary responsibility?
Fiduciary tends to be your responsibilities to the community, to government groups, well, the government for reporting. It's more than just, people tend to think it's just finances. It's acting in goodwill for the community and being responsible for them. So if you were to decide to pick a or take a or sign a contract with someone that happens to be related to you, that would be poor fiduciary responsibility. Does that make sense?
does a little bit more.
All right, let me reset this for you. Hang on. All right.
So for like my responsibilities is to pretty much make sure everybody is on the same page, make sure like everyone is sort of, not really sort of, but more so pretty much it's like just making sure everybody is like on the same page with everything, and like if anything comes up, find the best way to resolve it for both parties involved.
All right. Yancha, I'm going to repeat the question for you. What is your understanding of your fiduciary responsibilities if elected to the board?
Sure. So the fiduciary responsibilities, there's really three main things when you pay attention to the fiduciary responsibilities. It's a duty of care, duty of loyalty, and duty of obedience. Basically, what it boils down to is actively participating in the board and the community, to move forward our mission and charter. Pay attention in understanding any kind of financial statements that bring out. Putting our organization MNFurs' interests above our own interests, and then we must make sure that MNFurs is law-abiding and like respects all laws and regulations at all times.
Okay, perfect.
Good. Sorry, I got the timer, but
That's
I think we're okay.
that's fine. I started one on my side. All right. As we switch presenters.
Here we
I
go.
will.
Ugh.
Yeah, that's one. This was in person. It'd be so much easier.
Yeah.
All right, the next one. I'm gonna. It's going in the same order of Midnight and Yancha. I'm gonna mix it up because of Papillon not being here. It's kind of repeating that. So for this next one, we're gonna start with Yancha and then Midnight. Question 4 is being, what are your plans for educating the public on Minnesota furs from the perspective of our organization existing? What have we what we provide to our community, the general public, etc. We're going to start with Yancha on this one.
I didn't know if you wanted to wait for the timer to show up, or here we go. So what we need to continue doing is one, revamp the website so we can get to better serve our community and people that are curious and want to know more about our organization. Unfortunately, our website is quite out of date, but we are working on that. But that's something that definitely needs to move forward in order to achieve that goal, for educational regions. And what I'd like also to do is just increase our use of social media. We have a number of platforms that we can use to help educate the public and make a more positive experience, for people that when they want to know more about our organization.
Okay, great. Um, and then Midnight, I'm going to repeat the question for you. What are your plans for educating the public on Minnesota furs from the perspective of our organization existing, what we provide to our community, the general public, etc.?
A lot of the things that Yancha brought up are very good points and are some of the same ones that I share, like with the website, having more up to date, as well as like expanding for a about section to of what sorts of stuff that we do and like how can the community get involved. Increased social media is another thing that I do share, and also for even broadening over to like the community as well as like the surrounding Minneapolis, St. Paul, Twin Cities metro area, of like expanding for like local events as well as like having like educational sessions for those that are there. Like for one thing that we do have the youth program, and it's sort of like our way of like also of having something for our youth first, but also something that their parents can come to and also and ask us questions of like who we are as a furry, like, and basically how can like they can better understand and be supportive of their youth.
Perfect. Thanks. Going forward, I'm just going to go ahead and present my whole screen and keep that timer as a window I can slide in, if that's all right with you, Sin.
Sure.
'Cause I'm pretty sure by the 15th question, this is going to be a nightmare.
Yeah.
All right. For the next question, we are in question number 5. The order for this one will be Yancha, Papillon, Midnight. Am I presenting my screen? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Um, with this new era of inclusion, where the old norms and behaviors in society are not acceptable, how are you going to make Minnesota Furs be more inclusive? As an example, how would you get more people involved from all walks of life?
So I generally think we do a good job here, in the organization, being being very inclusive. What I like to see change is some of the rough edges, as far as our documentation. There's some gendered language, some non-inclusive language in some of our like mission and charter information, which I like to see updated, just to fix that. Um, I'd also like to see just we need to make sure that we don't fall for like the the just being too tolerant of everybody. We need to make sure we have borders to make sure that doesn't get approached on, to make sure that we make sure that MNFurs in our community is safe from anybody that wants to see us harm or wants to infringe on that.
great. Thanks. Uh, Papillon's not in attendance, so midnight. With this new era of inclusion where the old norms and behaviors in society are not acceptable, how are you going to make MNFurs be more inclusive? As an example, how will you get more people involved from all walks of life?
From an event standpoint, it's bringing more of a welcoming atmosphere for pretty much everyone, whether they are like non-cisgendered, so all of our non-binary and our trans folks, as well as bringing more recognition to those folks, as well as those from persons of color. I do feel that a lot of like stuff in the past was more like geared towards like there's a lot of like more of like basically where there was more like he she like not very many of like for those that do not fall under the male or female spectrum. And basically I just want to bring more recognition to those who have had any sort of or very little recognition in this community.
Great, thanks. Just as a reminder, anyone that's not the candidates should probably have their webcams off, and also make sure your microphones are muted. Um, great. For that question, that was both of you, right? Yancha and Midnight both answered that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Sorry, my mind is in 1,000 different places right now. For the next question, nonprofit groups require funds to remain operational. What is your proposal on ways to provide more revenue streams for MNFurs? For this one, the order will be Midnight and then Yancha. So Midnight, if you want to go ahead and begin.
So usually, like how Minnesota Furs have brought in most of their revenue was through holding physical events, whether that be the picnics, the holiday party, and the Furry Migration Convention. However, as with 2020 being a thing, and with the pandemic, where that has not been really too like easily. So probably for more one things like donations are always acceptable. The the Amazon Smile link has definitely been very beneficial. However, for like some new ways, like having more of an easier way to donate and having more of like incentives for funding both future in-person as well as current physical events. uh I just said same thing, but what I meant was future in-person and current online events to sort of bring that. So whether that be like donation incentives, such as like the sponsor and super sponsors of your, or pretty much making it easier for those to donate, having having another way for those to donate if they can't donate much or if anything at all and want to continue to support us in the months or years to come.
Cool. Thank you. Yancha, nonprofit groups require funds to remain operational. What is your proposal on ways to provide more revenue streams for MNFurs?
So I think donations can only take us so far. While we've been using that recently, and that's been our history, what I think we should do is try to look into more merchandising opportunities. It's been a while since we've added anything as far as merchandise that we can sell. A lot of times I know it's difficult. We can't sell those at locations when we do like physical events, but I think we could do something online in order to increase that, and that would be one revenue stream. Also, what I'd like to see is when we can start doing in-person events is some kind of fundraising events. There's other groups locally that has events specifically to target like fundraising. I know GPS does like their pirate cruise, something like that. And that's something I also think we could investigate and see if we could use that as another means of increasing revenue.
Perfect. Thank you. Next question is, if elected to the board, how would you handle yourself publicly when and if approached by the general public wanting to know more about us? For this order, we'll go Yancha and then Midnight.
So, so I think what we do is we just need to explain what furry is. There's a lot of curious people when they approach us; they don't know what we're doing. So if we're out in public, at a picnic or something, they're just curious why we're all running around as fuzzy animals. And it's good to just educate people, let people know what the furry fandom is, what we do, and two, then we just go into specifically what MNFurs means to the community, what events we hold, what what our history is, and that kind of thing. And then we also can just we can point them towards our website or some of the other resources to let them expand that if they want to know more about us.
Great. Next, Midnight. If elected to the board, how would you handle yourself publicly when and if approached by the general public wanting to know more about us?
So kind of like the same scenario that Yancha brought up was like, say, like we have our like picnic events out at many of the public parks around the area. We do have like many different those from the general public who just see and just wonder, who are we, and and who we are, and why we like this. So pretty much it's like if I were like approached, it's more like wanting to explain, like, you know like explain easily, like how, like what furry is, and how how it uh how we enjoy what we do, as well as like bring in more resources if they would like more information, if they're, and if it's something that they're even more like generally interested in, like pointing to the Minnesota First website and answer any questions that they may have.
Great. Next question is, do you delegate? Do you actively do it? How do you delegate tasks outside the furry community? For this one, we will start with Yancha and then Midnight.
Oh, absolutely. I found when I was in the hotel department, it was important for us to would being there is to gain the staff we had, and then delegate them and mentor them and teach them what how to do each of the tasks that need to be done. I found that very important for the success that the hotel department had, and continues having for immigration. And outside the fandom, I'm very big into finding as much people that are interested in helping, and and finding the best people to do each task. Um, and it just I think it comes naturally to me, and I like doing that. And I think it's a very important that as a board member that we keep doing it.
Right? Midnight, do you delegate? Do you actively do it? How do you delegate tasks outside of the furry community?
For within the community and my position in hotel, I do actively delegate out tasks where needed, and to those who are very well like interested and are able to help out wherever they can, whether it be like at con operations, or even like pre-convention with the multitude sort of things that we do outside of the furry community. Like I work on the ramp at an airport, and what we do is that we basically delegate like who's doing what, like who's wing walking, who's bringing the plane in, and who's offloading bags, and who's going on to clean. And we we divide out by whoever is interested in doing what, and then also like switching out to make sure like everyone has a chance to do everything of a particular function.
Great. Thank you. Next question is, if elected, what are some of your goals that you'd like to accomplish with the organization over the next 2 years and why? For this order, we'll go Midnight and then Yancha.
Two goals that I do want to see that have been pretty much at the top of my mind is broadening the Minnesota Furs presence like more into the more greater areas of the state of Minnesota to parts like here in Duluth and areas like down south in Rochester, up in St. Cloud, Bemidji, Iron Range. Like for me, I'm originally from Mountain Iron, Minnesota, like about an hour north of Duluth, 3 hours north of the Twin Cities, and really bringing more of like the outreach, whether it be like events and making sure like everybody around is included and has a chance to experience like one of these events. And the other goal is to is again with inclusion for everyone, no matter who they are, and bringing more recognition to those who don't get too much recognition.
Great. Yancha, same question. If elected, what are some of your goals that you want to accomplish with the organization over the next 2 years and why?
All right, so I have four goals that I'd like to see done. One we're currently working on is that, and that's to make sure that the website is revamped. Give that new functionality, so we can kind of bring it up to standards of websites that are today. Um, and what else I'd like to see is just our increased use of social media, just to make sure we as a board can communicate more to our community. Um, it's always a like an ongoing struggle, and I'd like to see us use that as an avenue to be able to get all that information of events, volunteer opportunities, just general news that the community has. And I'd also like to see that the board gets out there, is more visible, does more events, that we actively listen to our community members. I'd like to see um, some of the events that we used to have where we had like roundtable or discussions, monthly discussions with the public, and I'd like to see more of that. And I'd also like to make sure that we as Minnesota Furs remains and always is like a safe space for our community. Just to continue that, and really make sure that we're the safe space.
Great, thanks. Question 10. If elected, what would you like to do as a board member to explore new partnership avenues and expand Minnesota Furs into new territory? For this one, we'll go Midnight and then Yancha.
As sort of like one thing that I mentioned before was that I want to expand the reach of the organization to other parts of the state outside of the Twin Cities metro. So whether that be like communicating communicating and collaborating with like local fur groups in areas like Duluth, Cloquet, the Iron Range, Bemidji, Grand Rapids, and those like down south and more west, like Moorhead, Rochester, etc. Like like basically collaborating with like those that have been here for a long time, and seeing like what can we do and how can we like broaden our reach to those, and how they can also help out as well with that.
Yancha, if elected, what would you do as a board member to explore new partnership avenues and expand Minnesota Furs into new territory?
Sure. As a board member, what I like to do is just research, and explore any other groups that share the same values that we do. Those include like inclusion, animal rights, uh, that sort of thing, and reach out to those groups and see if we can partner with them. I know that we've always talked and wanted to be um, charity groups at hospitals, more more partnership with like Como Zoo when they open up for like Zubu, there's other organizations, not just furry, that we could get into as an organization that I think share our same values, and it would be great to explore those. Also, what I like to do is also just strengthen the ones that we have with our partners already. For example, GPS, they put on a lot of great events, and it would be nice to use those more, and partner with them more, just because they're already having events for like artists and gaming and stuff, and it's no, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can just promote their things and and get involved with those kind of events. And I think that really adds more to our community without really having for us to do a lot more work.
Thank you, Yancha. All right, we are at our halfway mark. I'm going to say that we take about a 10-minute break and then resume for the second half. Just as a reminder, if anyone else has any questions they want to submit, do so before the end of the break by emailing elections@mnfurs.org. I will set the timer for 10 minutes, and I will see everyone back here then. All right, great. So now that we're in the second part of the session, we're, I believe, closed to any additional questions. We will resume
Okay.
as soon as I get all my tabs back in order. All right, cool. We are on question 11. Let me actually switch this back to. For this order of this question, it will be Yancha and then Midnight. To remain compliant with CDC guidelines, how can our very socially active community remain interactive in other events? We'll start with Yancha.
So what we need to do to remain socially active is to keep pushing our virtual events. The New Year's Eve event, I think, was amazing success. But we've had some, some other smaller events, some events through our Discord, and I think we really need to keep pushing those just to stay socially active. Um, and then also just increase our use of social media. We need to just keep getting that word out, just keep getting people excited for the group, getting the news out, and also get our website revamped, just so we can share everything in one spot.
Great. Some noise comes from someone's mic. Just make sure you're not muted if you're not talking. Great. Midnight. Remain compliant with CDC guidelines. How can our very socially active community remain interactive in other events?
Like mentioned previously, our New Year's event with Fray Migration I've seen has been a very good success, and I've seen a lot of the virtual events that are going on in the Discord server, and I think our moderators are doing a fantastic job of putting those on. One thing that we do need to do is that I feel we're a little bit lacking on is more promote is that we need to promote the events more and let the rest of our community know is like, hey, uh, sucks being inside, but we at least have some virtual stuff still going on, and everyone's invited. And yeah, so it's more or less just pushing out the word more of our virtual events and increasing that engagement.
Place yourself in the following scenario. It's September of 2021 and vaccines are being distributed and things are becoming safe again for in-person gatherings. How would you steer MNFurs in a direction that keeps people safe? What are some of the first activities you see MNFurs holding once the pandemic is over? For this one, we are going to do the same order again, which would be Yancha and then Midnight.
So the first events that I see really holding are some of the smaller outdoor events that we can do. That way we can keep socially distanced. We can keep everybody safe until all the vaccines are out there. Those are kind of events would be some of the photography events, fursuit romps, that type of thing. That can be smaller, but they can still remain socially distance. People can still wear masks. So those are the kind of events that I would probably see be the first ones. Maybe if things are going well, have the picnic. Since it's outdoors, we could maybe that may be a possibility.
Okay, great. Midnight, place yourself in the following scenario. It is September of 2021, vaccines are being distributed, and things are becoming safe again for in person gatherings. How would you steer Minnesota Furs in a direction that keeps people safe? What are the some first activities that you would see Minnesota Furs holding once the pandemic is over?
So the sort of events that I see that Minnesota Furs would be doing would be, as mentioned previously, would be the smaller scale events and the smaller scale outdoor events. That is, so stuff like the fursuit romps and just like the smaller social gatherings. Uh, and then as herd immunity continues going up in a positive direction, I do see that uh, our larger events such as the picnics would start to come back, and it's all up from there. And of course, with every event, with outdoors, it's easier to have social distancing and mask wearing since you're not in a confined space, like at the oval meets, for example, where you have a more where it's at our picnics where we have a wide open field for anyone to just go out and have fun and do their own thing.
In October of 2020, Minnesota Furs established a presence on Discord to provide a space for our community. In what other ways would you suggest we take Minnesota Furs to create more of an online experience? For this one, we're going to go Midnight and then Yancha.
The Discord I see is an excellent start to bringing more more online experiences to our community members, as that was one thing that I felt was lacking at the time too, was for more of an online place where our community can hang out with one another and chat amongst themselves. And with the website, the usual go-to places, the forums. However, it's as time went on, more the more younger generation such as myself have been geared more towards platforms such as Google Meets, Discord, and others. So I feel that we can definitely expand our uses of these newer platforms, and expand our use of social media to bring more light to these online social spaces.
Great. Yancha, in October of 2020, Minnesota Furs established a presence on Discord to provide a space for our community. In what other ways would you suggest we take Minnesota Furs to create more of an online experience?
So our Discord has been a great success so far. I really appreciate all the volunteers we've had for that, and I think we can really build off of that to do more online experiences. For example, what we're doing now through Google, I think Google has really kind of stepped up too with a lot more tools that we can use and make better use of this of small gatherings or virtual gatherings like this to do in person or virtual type things that we might do we might have done before in person. For example, like cooking demonstrations or fursuit virtual fursuit romps, things like that. We can do that through like Google Meets. Another thing I'd like to do is just we need to work on revamping the website. I think I'm gonna touch on this a lot. That it used to be our hub, including the forums, and that's just it's been so out of date. It fell out of style, and I think we really need to revamp that, build on that, get that more modern, so our community has a place to get one central place online that has the tools that we can build that great experience. And also on that, we need to keep pushing out our social media. I know that it's a difficult job, and we're always looking for more people to help with that. But it's one of those things that we need to keep, keep working on all the avenues for social media, not just exclusive to one. Um, Try to build out to as many as possible, like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and I don't know, TikTok and whatever, just so we can meet the needs of our community.
Majority of Minnesota Furs events are established and ran by leadership. What would you do as a board member to help and encourage more community ran events? For this one, we'll go Yancha and then Midnight.
So, as a board, I think what we need to do is start building more of an environment of mentorship, so we can really have all the leaders we have build up more leaders in our community to step up and start running events. We also need to get out there and share our passion for our community and for helping the group, and I think that's missed a lot of times because we're so busy focusing on the doing. We're not out there trying to get out there, spread the word of what we are and who we are, and share that passion and our vision with our community at large. I think that's really important. That way, it really, I kind of feel like, you know, hearing those stories and hearing the experiences from other people really kind of built me into what I am now, and why I'm doing this is because I heard those stories from, from other people, and I took that and I said, hey, this was really fun and that's what I want to do, and I'd like to see the board do that more often. Get out there, share a passion, mentor people so we have that new next generation of leaders, and then we can build on that to run more events.
Right. Midnight, same question. The majority of Minnesota Furs events are established and ran by leadership. What would you do as a board member to help and encourage more community ran events?
So, like, like, one thing that I'm pushing like more for is broadening our reach to other communities across the entire state. So, like, for example, like here in Duluth, like we've had events in the area for like bowling meets, fursuit romps, and just general get-togethers. And I feel that like with the organization, like we like for everybody else, including in other areas that don't can't really make it to the Twin Cities to be at the main events, like how we can help our community members in other areas like get the resources they need to help run events and to uh, basically succeed in hosting their own kind of thing for their part of the community in the state.
Right. With the age diversity in Minnesota Furs, how do you plan to engage youth, teens, and adults to become more involved with the community and make a difference? The order for this one will be Midnight and then Yancha.
So over the years since I've been part of like Minnesota Furs, I have seen more of a shift towards like more events for our younger and youth type community. However, it's like with like that shift in like the more recent years, I have seen more of like our older adult members like feeling like alienated, like there's not really much for them, that it's more skewed towards them. So it's like especially with our big events, like pretty much like having something for for everyone, and everyone having their own spaces is along with the big like everyone like the big centralized like area of each event.
Right, Yancha, same question. With the age of diversity in Minnesota Furs, how do you plan to engage youth, teens, and adults to be more involved within the community and make a difference?
So I'd like to just build on the success that really got me into the group, and that's just get out there, be more visible, reach out to all the different communities that we have. Uh, just share our passion for being a furry, share a passion for volunteering and being staff. Um, tell the stories, build up the build up the friendships and stuff like that, because that's really what we are. And I'd like to see us do more than that, or more of that, because I think that'll make a lot of distance or difference. And just as a board or a staff, I think we just need to be available, just to answer the questions and be there for our community when it needs.
Thanks. What background, experience, and training you had that would help your role on the board? Are you willing to take classes to expand your nonprofit experience, even if it costs money? For this one, we'll go Yancha and then Midnight.
So I've been a part of this group for almost as long as this group has been around. I attended the first Perkins meet. I don't know if that was like 15 or more years ago, and that's really when I got involved. Um, and from that, I really like being involved with our community and with our group, and I've stuck with that through that the entire time so far, through the steering group, through forming for immigration, and now running through the board. And I'm always willing to learn new skills. I really That's something I really love doing, is learning new skills. And right now I'm actually like taking classes and learning more about programming. So it would be nothing different than for going on the board. And then absolutely, I know there's already been talk about signing up for like classes specifically for like board classes, and I'm always willing to take those classes, even if I have cost money.
Midnight, same question. What background, experience, and training you have that would help your role on the board? Are you willing to take classes to expand your nonprofit experience, even if it costs money?
I have been involved with Minnesota Furs events since late 2017. So basically, like almost right after I turned 18, I went to furry migration. I enjoyed it a lot, and I've been going to mostly the larger meets, such as the holiday party and the picnic. And funny enough, is holiday party 2018. I haven't been really like in the community for more than for even like I've only been there like not even a year yet, and I've already got asked to join staff for free migration for a hotel, and I enjoyed that a lot. And I somehow became department head, and I feel like with the experience from the convention, I help would I would it would very much help with my role on the board, and I'm always willing to expand that knowledge. And I mean, if it does have to cost me money out of pocket, I'll do it if it means that it'll benefit me and my skills in the long run.
Great. Next question is, how do you handle burnout, and how would you help others with burnout? For this one, we'll go Midnight and then Yancha.
So I actually have experienced burnout quite a number of times, especially with the convention. Like, being a department head, it's a very high stress environment, and it's easy to burn yourself out with that. Uh, how I tend to go about it is pretty much just taking taking a break, like when I need to, and having like those regular breaks definitely helps out to just, get away from all the action and rest and come back to your full self. I feel like that it would also be applicable to others who might experience the same kind of burnout that I do. Just, take a step back when you need to, and just to relax, take your mind off the things, and yeah.
Yancha, same question. How do you handle burnout, and how do you help others with burnout?
The way I personally handle burnout is, for example, I used to be a hotel department lead for the hotel for furry migration as well. And what I did when I felt burned out from working that is just to shift into a different position within the organization. And I think that really helps for me. And I think we need to like keep the environment where people don't feel like they're tied down or they're needed to do one specific task, and that they're allowed to move around in within furry migration or within MNFurs when they start feeling burnout. And I think that really helps for people. Also, I think what we need to do as an organization is continuing mentoring people, get them involved. That way, we always have people that are passionate and love the community and willing to step in when needed. That way, no one's ever like thinks that they're forced to do a job because there's no one else to do that job. And I think that will, in the long run, that'll help others from feeling that burnout.
Great. Next question. Have you mentored people before? What is the MNFurs responsibility to mentor and be a role model for future leaders of the community? Well, the order on this one will be the same as the previous, Midnight, and then Yancha.
So, I have not mentored anyone as of yet, but I would love to. I'd love to share my experiences with working with the organization and help them like be successful within the community, as well as bring that knowledge to any other thing that they might have. For me though, I have definitely been, mentored. I do, and I still have mentors within the community and on the board, such as Charles. Thank you, by the way, Charles. And because honestly, it's just like with, the amount of staff and the amount of experience that I've gotten from working with the board and working with, the convention has definitely improved me in a lot of different ways. Same goes for you, Yancha, for when you were department head for a hotel. So thank you for all that. But yeah, I would definitely love to like share my experiences for those that would love to uh, one day step up to the leadership roles.
Great. Same question for Yancha. Have you mentored people before? What is the MNFurs responsibility to mentor and be a role model for future leaders of the community?
So, just like Minna was touching on, when I was in the hotel department, I did mentor, quite a few people. I found that to be nearly, one of the most important roles I could have, just so we could get more people involved in our community. Um, and I think it's one of the most like needed and most important things that any of the senior staff members for immigration or board members for MNFurs can have within our community, because all the all the people joining us are really our next leaders. They're the next board members, they're the next con chairs, they're the next department heads. That's why it's so important. So yes, so we need to be that role model. We need to get the people involved. It's one of the most important things we can do.
Great. The next question is, what scares you most about being on the board? First, we'll start with Yancha and then Midnight.
So there's a few things that scare me the most. That is being burnt out, trying to take on too much myself and getting burnt out and not being able to perform expectations. I think that's a real concern, and we've seen it before. Another thing would just be to uh, fail the community, fail to meet my goals that I have for being a board member, and thirdly, I think also really important is just not being able to protect all our community members. I think that's one of my greatest fears is that something is going to go wrong and we'll have something happen and would fail to protect our community members. And it's a very like real fear of mine.
Same question for you, Midnight. What scares you most about being on the board?
I share a lot of the same fears with Yancha, like for failing to meet expectations and burnout, and as well as protecting our community members.
Next question. There is a growing concern in the Minnesota Furs community surrounding the safety of children. The Minnesota Fur the The Minnesota Furs has very minimal resources available in the forum section or the terms of service regarding the safety with minors being involved with our community. How can the Minnesota Furs provide parents and guardians with tools to teach children safety or help adults understand the dangers of child predators or antagonists and how to properly approach it? So the order on this one will be Midnight and then Yancha.
Can you move the timer a little bit out of the way, please? Thank you. so for so I definitely do want to establish more resources to those, and and having education opportunities for to learn about sorts of the dangers and how to protect yourself against those dangers. We do, and as an organization, we do need a lot more resources for us to be able to handle these concerns appropriately and as efficiently as possible.
Okay. Yancha, same question. Do you want me to read it again or are you good?
No, I think I'm good. I think this is why we have our partnership agreements with other organizations. There's no way for no reason for us to reinvent the wheel in this when our partners have it's the same concern across the board. And I think we can really work with GPS or Convergence, ATC, and bring in those resources, that knowledge, those people from those other organizations to get that and build upon that. So there's no reason for us to kind of go over things again or stumble on this. We can just reach out to these people, and I'm sure since it's such a it's a topic that we all care about, and we readily find all the knowledge and resources from these other groups.
Great, thanks. I had some caching issues with my web browser, so I had to reboot. So I am sorry if the order is a little bit weird now. For this next question, we'll go Midnight and then Yancha. If you could change anything in the code of conduct, what would it be? Starting with Midnight.
I think the code of conduct, for the most part, touches on all the key aspects for how we run the convention and also the MNFurs as a whole. Uh, like pretty much, it's more or less to have more protections. Like one thing I would definitely expand upon is having more of these protections for our younger community members as well as those are persons of color, transgender, all of and making sure everyone is welcome and safe in our community.
Great. Same for you, Yancha. If you could change anything in the code of conduct, what would it be?
So what I'd like to change in the code of conduct is just to make the language more inclusive for everybody. So as a community, we really do that as our values. Make sure it's inclusive to transgender, to all aspects, and also just make sure that we have some kind of protections in place so we don't bring like intolerance in the community. We need to stop that and make sure it doesn't get involved in, like, make its way into our community.
Great, thank you. Um, what are things MNFurs can do to help its nonprofit goals of education and scholarship? The order on this one will be Midnight and then Yancha again. So Midnight.
So some things that MNFurs can do is broaden the educational resources that we provide to our community members and to the general public, whether that be like more informational sessions about the fandom and uh, like for us. And another thing that I have seen like brought up multiple times, and even a section on the website that I do hope becomes a thing one day for that I would see beneficial to our community members, is providing a scholarship for our younger community members to to help uh, to help them find more success with them educationally.
Yancha, what are things that MNFurs can do to help its nonprofit goals of education and scholarship?
So to really help with those goals, we need to first of all fix the website. I'm going to go on in that, like all this meeting is we need to revamp the website, so we can have a good place to share uh, all of the knowledge that we have, and make it readily available. Other things that we can go into is just establishing more YouTube videos, things like that. We can do some presentations and get that and share that with our community, and then probably establish like a committee so we can um, raise a scholarship or donation or something to allow us to allow that to go to our community members.
Okay. MNFurs has become a second life and a second job. How do you plan to keep yourself active in other things in other communities? What are your hobbies, and can those be separate from MNFurs? Order for this one will be Midnight and then Yancha.
So I do I do a lot of volunteering and staffing for other conventions. I am part of hotel for Midwest Fur Fest, and I'm starting to get to dip my toes into a bunch of other conventions around the U.S. and helping out wherever I can. For locally, in the future, I would like to look into and helping out with some of the local conventions that are around here, such as Anime Detour and 2D Con. Those are fantastic conventions, as well as like any other local conventions in the Minneapolis area.
Great. Same for Yancha. MNFurs can become a second life and second job. How do you plan to keep yourself active in other things and other communities? What are some of your hobbies, and how can those be separate? What are your hobbies, and how can those be separate from MNFurs?
So everything in moderation, right? So what I'll continue doing is just continue volunteering for some of the other conventions and communities. Been active with Anime Detour in the past when they've had in-person conventions, and continue exploring, being more active for some of the other groups. And I think really too we need to focus on our own on our own hobbies so we don't get burned out. And for me, a lot of that's going to be like running, cooking, um, spending time with pets, and PC gaming and board gaming. And I really think doing a lot of that really keeps you, balanced so you don't get burned out from taking on too much.
Great. What has had more of an effect over the furry community in the recent years, Disney or anime? if needing to say things, you can say Zootopia versus Beastars. The order for this one will be Yancha and then Midnight.
I'm gonna have to say, in the recent years, it's really been anime. It's really thanks to Netflix and bringing all of the like furry anime to us. I think that's been a really recent thing with BNA and B Stars. Um, just being kind of a huge impact on the community and people right now. But we'll see. Zootopia 2 will be out in a couple of years, and then that'll change. So it'll flip flop.
Midnight, same question to you. What has had more of an effect over the furry community in the recent years, Disney or anime?
It's been sort of both actually. So it's pretty much like kind of how I see it is like more is like a flip flop. Like it's mostly been Disney, but for like me, it's also been like stuff like video games such as like Sly Cooper, Sonic the Hedgehog, and all that. But definitely in more recent years with Netflix, where you have uh, series such as BNA, Beastars, Agretzko, all of those are fantastic pieces of media, and they've been very influential to the fandom as a whole. But Zootopia 2 is around the corner, and who else? And who knows what Disney has up their sleeve this time?
Great. If you had to come up with a character for MNFurs representation, what type of animal would you propose and why? We will start with Midnight.
Well, there is a couple of obvious ones, and I am gonna go with one of those. Like pretty much the two that come up into my mind is uh, a gopher and a loon, because there needs to be more bird sonas definitely. But I would say the loon because it is the Minnesota state bird, and would represent us as a whole, with being in Minnesota and all that.
Right, Yancha, if you had to come up with a character for MNFurs representation, what type of animal would you propose and why?
You know, uh, Midnight kind of stole it from me. I was gonna go with Loon just because I think that really represents a lot of the nature. Because going up north, you just kind of help missing it when you go onto the lake or something and hearing the loon's call. And I think that's really you can only really hear that in Minnesota, and I think that really kind of represents us.
Great. Um, I believe, unless I need to refresh the page from anyone on the committee, I think that is it for questions. Um, so I just wanted to thank our candidates, Papillon, who couldn't attend, Yancha, and Midnight for running for the board this year. Just as a reminder to everyone that's here, we are currently fulfilling 2 positions on the board and currently have 3 people running. So starting tomorrow at noon, vote.mnfurs.org will be live. Just as a reminder, we are not proactively sending you voting keys. So if you want to vote, send us an email by emailing elections@mnfurs.org. We'll verify your voting eligibility, which is based off of volunteer hours, and then we'll provide you that key. The website will probably be updated shortly here with some information on how the voting system will work. It should be pretty painless and understandable, but there will be a video explaining that. And also, this video will be made available at some point in the near future for anyone that wants to share this with others, or if anyone wants to watch it again. There were some issues capturing the video, so it might be primarily audio. So just think of it as a exciting podcast. Um, I think that pretty much covers everything. Just to reiterate some of the other milestones, anyone that needs absentee ballots, ballots, email us for a ballot. Those need to be returned postmarked by March 21st, and voting closes on the 27th at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. Um, so yeah, again, thanks to the candidates for running. Um, and if anyone has any other questions, feel free to email us at the email on screen. I think that concludes the candidate debate.
Thank you, Rico.
For those that are curious about hearing Papillon's answers to these, more than likely we'll probably have them record it separately. So we'll keep you guys updated on Twitter and our website or Discord. Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all for coming out.